Welcome into the Midtown Madness podcast with Peter Hale and Zach Miller. I'm Zach Miller. I've got Peter Hale with me in just 1 second. But first, we're going to throw it over to an interview with head women's soccer coach Katie Shields. This was an awesome interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I know Peter and I really loved talking to her. She is special. Just you guys got to listen to it starting right now. We're so excited to bring on a landmark guest to the podcast, the first head coach to join the Midtown Madness show. She has her Billikens headed to the NCAA tournament for the third season in a row. They're sporting a 15-1 overall record and a more than convincing 8-0 in the A10. Katie Shields, welcome to the Midtown Madness podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No, it's absolutely exciting. You're on a bit of a whirlwind media tour today,
eh? Yeah, you guys, Frank Cusimano, some Stu. It's been a great day.
Stu always, Cus always gets the scoops, man. He always does.
Yeah.
You played at Harvard and you went to school at Harvard. How did you react to the Ivy League canceling their seasons?
To be honest, I thought it was a bad omen for the rest of us. They're usually the first out. They're first ahead of the rest of the game. And so when they canceled, I actually got nervous that was going to be an omen that we were going to end up canceling. But I get it. The Ivy has never blinked about what their values are and who they are and what, their priorities. So I think it's, obviously I think pretty disappointing for some of their student athletes, but it wasn't that surprising to me at the end of the day, just being a part of the Ivy for 7 years total.
When did you get the kind of go ahead that it was going to be a spring season?
Yeah, I think it was kind of just a long build. I remember it being mid-July when we understood that the fall wasn't going to happen, but Chris May was always pretty bullish that the spring would absolutely happen. And he jumped on with our team on a Zoom right the day the A10 canceled and, basically answered questions and said, hey, we're going to go compete for a championship this spring. We're going to play in the NCAA tournament this spring, as long as there is one, as long as it happens. So his pretty confident leadership, I think, helped us keep our group settled and just focused on the spring.
You had a lot of experience before you made it to SLU, but kind of your SLU career was kind of a quick turnaround between when you were hired as an assistant coach by Kat Mertz, and then she ended up going to Oregon and then,
yeah.
She ended up going to Oregon, and you were kind of, you were hired from an assistant role. Was that kind of as whirlwind as for you, or were you ready to go as a head coach?
Not at all. I mean, right place, right time, to be honest. I remember seeing you in Chaffetz at a basketball game. And you're like, oh man, I can't believe Kat left. I was kind of in that same mode, but I had the opportunity to, interview for the job. Kind of had an opportunity to get my foot in the door, because I think, both Chris and Janet at the time were pleased with the direction that Kat and then myself had the program starting to go. It was a long start, but so I just kind of grabbed the opportunity, and I think they were incredibly patient with me, and I'm incredibly appreciative that I got the shot I did.
You got your foot in the door, but eventually you've kicked down the door. I think it's fair to say, 3 straight A10 championships, 3 straight undefeated seasons. That only tie being that George Mason game. I was, to say you were livid would be an understatement.
I'm a pretty calm person, and I wasn't very calm in that moment, that game.
I couldn't believe they even started the game, to be honest with you. I remember watching that, and it was, the ball would go like 2 feet if you passed it as hard as you could.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky nobody got seriously hurt in that game.
Yeah.
And so the lesson learned is I'd never have a team take the field again in that kind of condition, but still learning lessons as we go here, year 7, year 8.
You got to St. Louis, and did you feel any pressure at St. Louis, because there is kind of that boys club or boys and girls, old boys, old girls club in St. Louis? It's kind of It's very tight knit. And St. Louisans feel some type of way about their soccer. They are very proud of their soccer. Was there pressure, or did you see it more as an exciting challenge?
I think there's always pressure, but I think we always feel a little more internal pressure if we're doing it right than we do external. Yes, there is some very proud St. Louisans of their soccer, so that adds, but it also adds a level of special to the program. I think it's probably a heavier pressure on the men's side than it is on, at least when I took over, than it is was on the women's side. Now we've elevated, I think, those expectations, but for us, it was always about just trying to get, yes, win over the St. Louis soccer community, but honestly, win over the young St. Louis soccer community and try and get the best recruits in St. Louis to give us a fair shot and a look. And that was really, I didn't pay attention because we knew if we got them, we would then win over the elder St. Louis soccer community. And so that was really where we put our energies. And when you build a winner, then people start to, jump on, and it needed to be from the talent side.
In terms of recruiting the St. Louis market, do you think it still stacks up nationally? I know historically it's always had that reputation, but it feels like a lot of other places have caught up. Is it still one of the elite recruiting markets, or is it kind of evened out over time?
I think for the size of the city, it's pretty elite. But yes, there are other places that have, I mean, Southern California is off the charts comparatively, the New York, New Jersey area, Texas. But I do think for the size of the city that St. Louis is, it is absolutely elite. And it's a reason we're the 15 seed, is because our roster is St. Louis kids. That said, it's not always easy to keep them all home, but we're trying our best with each class each year.
I know you briefly mentioned, Chris Allen and recruiting the St. Louis area, and he came up with this idea of visiting your recruits at other sports competitions, softball, football,
Track, basketball.
can you kind of expand on how that came about? And
yeah, I mean, Chris is unbelievable. Like, listen, we're not where we are without Chris on our staff. He is the perfect yang to my yang. I mean, he's phenomenal at what he does. And I mean, going to other athletes or recruits, sporting events, it's not a new idea. I mean, when I was assistant at Harvard, I went to high school lacrosse games to recruit kids, but I think Chris really came in and he said, like, the way we are going to get some of these special kids is by out loving them. And, then he kind of pushed on, all right, we're going to outlove them. And that means we're just going to show up at everything they do. And so he's relentless at what do they do, reaching out to high school coaches. And it's also, to be honest, it's just a better way to also build relationships. Is you can talk to Hannah Larson about kicking extra points in her high school football game. Well, you're not now that same coach who's just talking to her about her performance in her club soccer game. So it just kind of became an X factor that, like I said, Chris definitely was the one who pushed that and is always, hey, so-and-so, Lindsay Heckel is going for her 1,000th point in basketball tonight. Let's go. And so he's just his attention to detail, his ability to organize our recruiting, and then separate us from a relationship standpoint. It is again the reason we are having some of the success we're having.
Have you attended any non-sporting events like a school musical or something?
That's my dream. That's what I'm waiting for, is the kid like starring, in their high school musical, because I love theater. But it might not surprise you. There's not a ton of crossover. I can't see Hannah Larson on the stage or Caroline Kelly on the stage or in the choir, but I'm hoping someday we might get like a band concert or something.
Your team, they do play with a lot of energy, a lot of exuberance. It seems like they're really having fun out there. And I've noticed that more over time since you've been there. When you're recruiting, are you recruiting, I guess I would call it character, personality to fit the program? Or do you think the recruiting approach you just described is sort of naturally finding those players who are going to come in and be good fits in your system?
Yeah, I think it's a both. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, listen, you could be the coolest human in the world, but if you're not talented enough to play for us, it doesn't make sense. But I do think we will, one, yes, we'll recruit some things that are maybe special, and we might not go after a kid that maybe is a quote blue chipper if they don't fit us personality wise, if they're not willing to high press, if they're not willing to play freely and, kind of with that joy, or if they have too big of an ego. Like ego doesn't fly in our program very well. And so I think it's both. I also think we are not afraid. We're not a very militant program. Like we're not afraid to let you come in and let your special or your weird. We have a lot of weird, like let your weirdness shine. And I
Right.
think once you get in our environment, these kids kind of look around and they're like, oh, I can be weird. I can have a laugh. I can have a good time. But I would say the number one quality we recruit, and it's why we recruit a lot of crossover athletes to other sports, is competitiveness and a will to win. Like those are my two non-negotiables. I always ask recruits on a scale of 1 to 10, how competitive are you? And if it's anything below a 9, I've got questions right away. And so just the way we operate our program. And so those are, yeah, we suss a lot of that out in the recruiting process, but then I also think our environment lets you kind of let loose where you're not afraid to get yelled at, or you're not looking over your shoulder, or are they laughing at me? It's a pretty free place for them.
You mentioned, kind of weird and creativity. And I do notice a lot, like I find myself gravitating and noticing the Tobin Heath in a lot of players on your team, the more creative and the more kind of, like the Brie Halverson. I think for a couple of years, she was, dancing on a sideline before games. There was always something that drew me in right away. But I have a question from a friend of the program. He's a big follower of us, and he's a good friend of mine. We went to Brooklyn together for the NCAA or the A10 championship. He wants to know about the leadership and culture. He says watching all 27 players supporting each other the way they do has been really, really fun. And I mean, you have only one senior starting. And it's got to be kind of hard for those 3 seniors to kind of revert back to a bench role. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I would tell you, like, I think on game day, it probably looks seamless and easy, but like it takes relentless work from the staff to, we have a leadership group of 7 players that we meet with weekly, to every member of the staff has we divvy up each semester all 27 players on the team, and we have individual meetings with them every single week. So like I have 7 players that this week I will spend somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour having an individual meeting with. And so I think when you invest that amount of time, and like some of that 7 are players that may not travel, may not dress, may not play a meaningful minute. But I think if you invest in them, 1, as people, 2 as students, and then obviously 3 as soccer players, then it's a lot easier to buy into something bigger than yourself. We do a ton of culture building before you even arrive. And one thing we are very relentless on doing is defining roles. And so if there's clarity of role, you may not like the role, but as long as you have clarity and you understand what it is, I think more often than not, players can buy in. And we don't really believe in secrets. We'll tell you what we think, we'll show you our thoughts, we'll share video, we'll share statistics with you. And we really, at the end of the day, we make it very clear that while we are absolutely a program that values all 27 players, we prioritize winning in a championship culture. And so if that's not what you're after, then it's either we have this. We use a lot of metaphors in our program, and we talk about the seats in the boat. And so there's 4 different seats. Like seat 1 is you are charting the course, your hands are bloody, you got wind in your face, you're just relentless, digging in at every stroke. Seat 2 is like that first follower who is digging in. They might not be out front taking all the weather, but they're the one that is right behind you saying, what do you need? I got your back. And then seat 3 is kind of looking side to side. What's in it for me? Sometimes they're paddles in the water, sometimes they're not. And then seat 4 is you're actively working against the current of the boat, and you've got your paddle, you're bitching, you're complaining about the coaches, the team, in the locker room. And so we actually asked players to define their seat, what seat they sit in the boat, and really quickly, and we ask them to do it multiple times throughout a year. And so really quickly, you start to understand if you have seat threes or seat fours, and we either got to get them into seat one or two, or they're not the right fit. So, like I said, it may look seamless on game day. We also believe in building up, individual success, but not just Hannah Frederick bearing that 89th minute. We have a rope we give out that, like, every week the person that best lived one of our core values for the week. And like last week, we're going into championship week, and the leadership gave it to Casey Hartman, our backup goalkeeper, for embodying the core value one. Casey hasn't played a full minute all year. And so I think those pieces kind of keep you connected if you aren't in the playing group. But like I said, there's a lot of elements that go into it. And I think sometimes on game day, it looks a lot easier than it feels on every other day.
Jumping into this season specifically, can you talk to me about the scheduling? Just like it was a challenging season as a whole, but just the complexities of putting together a non-conference schedule. You had to play games inside in Indianapolis and at Lou Fuse at Old Ram Soccer Park. Talk to me about all that.
Yeah, Chris Allen deserves like a Nobel Prize for putting the schedule together, because I just gave him some guidelines and he ran with it. He's like persistent enough to just annoy schools to either say yes or no. But it was it was first understanding what SLU would allow us to do, and incredibly grateful that they allowed us to have a meaningful non-conference season. And so I think we looked at it saying we knew we had a young team. We had to schedule some wins. We also had to schedule some tests. And we also just had to schedule people that were willing to come play us or that we could go play them. So it was kind of a combination of all those. It changed a million times. But it ended up to be, a pretty good slate of games to prepare us for the A-10.
Can you talk about that Arkansas game? Because it was not streamed, and I don't think people really kind of got an idea of how that game went. I obviously didn't either. I thought about going, but I didn't. But can you kind of go over that game?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's such a bummer that it wasn't streamed. But I think they executed the game plan, to be honest, and we were pretty clear in what we were set out to do. We knew they're a very high pressing team. We wanted to pass out of their press versus just play into it and launch balls into it. We also wanted to press them. We thought we could get them to cough up the ball a little bit, that teams don't often go high press them, because that's what Arkansas does better. And then we also, they're very good on set pieces, but so are we. And so we thought if we could win the set piece and the kind of aerial challenge battle that we'd have success. And we did. I mean, we scored a phenomenal goal off a corner kick to kind of open it up. And then the nice thing came out of that. We weathered a storm a little bit defensively. Emily Percelli made some outstanding saves to keep us up a goal. And then early in the second half, we got awesome. We also really wanted our team, when we got in the attacking half, to push the tempo. So if the ball went out of bounds, get it back in quickly. Don't let them get organized. And we did that, scored another great goal. And then, they were pushing for an equal. They got one back, which was a little nervy. And then they were pushing for the equalizer, and we got one against the run of play, kind of an individual effort from Emily Gork. Excuse me. And it was just one of those moments where kind of a young team almost realized what they were capable of. But it was awesome.
You mentioned Emily and Puricelli, sorry, not Gork. I want to go back to that Dayton game at Dayton. She got run over in that game and is literally holding her arm. I just want to know, like, was it out of sight? Like, what in God's name?
No, she's a tough kid. Yeah, I mean, it kind of got ripped back, if you watch the replay in slow-mo, it got ripped back. But long story, I mean, kind of essentially sprained a ligament in that inner shoulder. But our trainer, our athletic trainer, Angie's amazing. She just went out there, kind of calmed her down, did a bunch of strength tests, did rotation tests. I mean, and I was actually telling Casey, our backup goalkeeper, to get warm, and Casey was kind of looking at me like, like, Emily's staying, which speaks to how good Emily is. But just, I also think there was a little bit of just, I think Emily was maybe scared that it was worse than it was. But we're fortunate it was what it was, and she could keep playing, and she made an unbelievable save, ripped it off that kid's foot. Yeah,
she
exactly.
reached out, and I was like, and it was with her bad arm too, and I was like, oh my goodness. That's when I was like, okay, this kid is something different.
She's something different. So we're, like I said, we're lucky it was what it was, and that she's tough enough to keep playing.
In terms of preparing for the A10 conference tournament, the really weird quirk about it is you wind up with one team that you're going to play a fourth time, and you get through them, and then you see a team that you haven't seen all season. So it's really unusual, given that you're going to see most teams at least once throughout the year. How do you prepare back-to-back games like that? A team that you know extremely well, and then somebody you've got to turn around and see for the first time.
I mean, the Dayton was like, are you kidding me? For all of us, to be honest. But we felt good about it because we thought we actually had our worst performance on the previous Sunday, our senior day. We didn't play well, just overall, statistically, we didn't have a great day. And so we knew we could prepare the team, and we felt pretty good about that as long as we could ensure motivation. So Chris had really done all the scout legwork leading up to all 3 Dayton games. And so I said, let me take them. I'll give a fresh take. And then he looked ahead and prepared for either UMass or Davidson. So I think just given that look, that's typically how we approach 2 games. One of us will take one, the other will take a different one. And then Davidson, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we watched that semi and we were nervous, just because of how they played. I mean, they sat in, and that is tough to break down when they're really organized. So I guess it was less about the repeat opponent and the new opponent, and more just the challenge of, they were very different teams, and we knew to our team it was going to feel really different after you play in these like track meet games against Dayton to then go play a game where the tempo was so slow. And so that was probably the bigger challenge for us.
Talk to me about that Davidson goal, because word on the street is you guys scouted that girl specifically, that she does that she scored 3 goals like that previously already.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to her, just to that, after you had scouted it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's the best thing and the worst thing in the world when something you scout and show the team then shows up in the game, but not when it looks like that. We knew they wouldn't get a lot of chances, but that they would be deadly with the ones they got. And so obviously it was an unfortunate giveaway. And when she got it on her foot, I think I just, oh no, and she hit probably the shot of her life, and no fault of Emily. Emily was in the right position when we gave the ball away for what was happening. But I think it made us all a little bit nervous, because then we knew that it almost gave Davidson permission to sit in. So it was less about, we knew they could do that. We just didn't want to give them any sniff to do it. And so then it was just going to be a steeper climb in the second half or the remainder of the game.
What was the team's kind of reaction to that goal, and what did you see that you liked in their reaction, even though they didn't pull one back before half?
There's a really cool moment, and I didn't see it until I watched the video back. But obviously Sophia gives the ball away, the kid hits a bomb, and Davidson's celebrating, and the camera's panning on Davidson and kind of pans away from us, and the majority of Sophia kind of puts her head in her hands, and the rest of the team kind of walks away from her. But Bree Halverson is basically on a full sprint to Sophia, to get to her and to tell her to leave it. It's the next play. It's how you respond. And it's like this great leadership moment where Bree gets to Sophia and gets her out of that moment and into the next. And I think that's something about what makes our team special is, A lot of people could be pissed. And they are in that moment, that it's an obvious mistake, but that doesn't help us move forward. So I loved that moment from Bree. It's leadership she's continuously given us through the years, especially to a freshman in the biggest game she's played in. And then I think there was a little bit of franticness at the end of if that's a word, at the end of the half, and obviously getting a goal disallowed right before halftime is frustrating. But as they came off the field and I walked into the halftime huddle, they were pretty calm. And the voices I heard as I walked in to address them were Bree Halverson, were Hannah Frederick, the leaders, the experienced ones who have championship experience and knew that we had plenty of time. And then I think in the second half, yeah, we made a few adjustments and tinkered with things, but they stayed steady and they didn't get frantic and just launch balls into the box or cheap giveaways. They kind of just chipped away at the game. And so I really like that response, especially since we hadn't been down a goal at all, the entire season at halftime.
You guys obviously come back and you get the PK, and then it was Friedrich hit that bomb. I mean, you could simultaneously hear the crowd erupt and exhale at the same time. I've never really, I can't remember a crowd doing that simultaneously. Just an immediate thought in the immediate of that ball hitting the back of the net.
I don't even know. I mean, I could see it, just the angle. Sometimes you have these awesome angles when kid hits a ball from wherever you are in the stadium. And from our bench, it came off her left foot and holy, that thing's going in. Like you could just see it. It's similar to how I saw Emily Gork's game winner the previous Sunday on the other goal, the Southside goal going in. And it's just this moment. I mean, if I'm being honest, it was a bit of a relief. But I will also say incredible joy for the team, but also for Hannah. She hasn't scored a lot of goals this year. She's found herself in a different playmaking role. And so it's this moment of relief, joy, but just like redemption too for her. And so I mean, and then it's this moment of like, all right, we got a minute and a half. We better not mess this up. So getting players behind the ball, trying to get them organized and deal with the kickoff.
It seemed like throughout that game, they were getting forwards in between the midfield and the back. Can you kind of talk to me about that? Because I'm not super smart. I can organize a defense as a goalkeeper, but I can't do much more than that. Can you explain kind of why that happens with the way we are set up?
Like us getting forward.
So it seemed like they were finding their players in between
our scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, we call it space seam 2 for you soccer nerds. But I think it's twofold. One, that part of that's a reaction to playing against Dayton so many times. So Dayton really wanted the space behind our line. So you play them three times in a row, we're almost more careful to protect the space in behind. And I think, a young back line, we're maybe not as protective of the space in front in that game where we're also chasing the game. So our deep midfielder, Carson Cole, Abby Miller, they are pushing forward a lot more than they typically would. So there's just a bigger space in there. Usually that space should be pretty tight, pretty difficult to play into. I think for those two reasons, it just grew. We also knew that it was okay if they got the ball in that space, that athletically we could probably deal then with whatever came out of that. So we almost gave them a little bit there to not have them get behind us.
Moving ahead to selection show, I guess it looks like you got together in like the student center or something to watch that today. Were there any expectations going in, or any kind of like, hey, here's where I think we might be? Because a top 16 team is it's new territory, and it's pretty great to see.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think we didn't know what the committee was going to do because it's such a weird, excuse me, it's such a weird year. I think if a normal year, it's a field of 64. We're hosting probably the first round, no doubt. And so we didn't know, because usually it's not like the basketball tournament where in women's soccer, they actually organize the first few games based on geography. So we didn't know, would they just seed it 1 through 48, or would they do geography and put us all in Carolina, whatever. So I didn't have a lot of clarity. I thought we would be right around the where we landed. I thought we'd be on the edge of a seed, or those first few teams not seeded. And so, but as an opponent, I mean, clearly, who could have picked those two teams? I had no idea. But I am proud and excited for the team that they're a seed. And if you look at the company they're around, it's pretty awesome from where this program's come in a short time.
For fans out there, you guys will take on the winner of Washington Liberty Friday, the 30th at 6 p.m. Your style of game prep, because, I guess I want to frame this question in the way that, you don't know who you're going to play yet, but also in general, the style of game prep. Do you focus on kind of playing your own game versus scouting to attack the defend the opposition based on their style?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, we don't change much game to game. We are who we are. Our defending style is what it is. That doesn't change. Attacking wise, we very much pay attention to spaces we think we can exploit, and maybe players we think we can pick on. And so we might, tinker, move so and so here, and as you kind of see, we flip some sides of players at times, and that was very intentional when we do it. But other than that, what we do to prepare the team is, I mean, we will train things to prepare us to be the best version of ourselves. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time preparing, excuse me, other than maybe outside of some set piece moments of another team setup. We're not going to put like a scout team out there and play in a Liberty or Washington style. We believe like you got to deal with us. You got to come after us. And that's a lesson learned over the history since I've been in the program. Every time we've changed, stylistically, even systematically, drastically, to kind of accommodate an opponent, or because of an opponent, we've never won the game. So philosophically, that's something that we just, especially going into Arkansas this year, we said we're going as we are. And then obviously that paid off, and the players enjoyed that. And I think they feel most confident in what they know as well.
Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of the Sweet 16, are you trying to keep your players from getting too distracted at the possibility of playing UNC?
I don't think they're distracted. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a quick moment that I spoke to him. We'll have a team meeting tomorrow and kind of unpack the plan. We can't look past anything. We haven't won a game in the NCAA tournament since, well before me, 2006. So, I think this group will definitely, there's no looking past the Liberty or Washington by any means.
They put the video up online of kind of celebrating the announcement, and it cut off right before, right before the reaction to North Carolina. I'm curious to get the inside scoop on how they reacted. How did the team react?
I think it was just more like, whoa, if I'm being totally honest, my kid was with me. And so I was a little distracted as the announcement popped up by him. But I think it was just more, it was like, a bigger cheer, and I'm sure there were some looks I decided like, holy cow. But hey, you're in the NCAA tournament, and like, you got to play the big dogs.
One last question for me. Anyway, Peter might have one more, but what did you learn from the last 2 years making the NCAA tournament that you're gonna carry into preparing for this one?
That's a great question. I think, we were super nervous year one. And so I think we prepared a little bit differently year two. I think year two going into the game, we weren't as nervous, but as the game wore and we got scored on, it got a little, and I think part of that was we had so many seniors on that team and so much emotion to that group. And so while this team plays with a ton of emotion, as you guys have said, and a ton of energy, that to try and just keep them moment by moment, minute by minute, just in where their feet are, like in the now, don't look too far ahead, don't look past today's training session, and just enjoy the opportunity to play more and to be together, and also don't let the moment get too big. And I think that's I think we've got this team and this program in a place where they get it, they belong, and it's more than belong. Like they can win these games, and I think the Arkansas win really probably pushed us to another level, because we've told them for years, you can win these games, but like you got to do it at some point. And so I think that's a piece of just reminding them what they're capable of day by day.
My last question just is more logistical than anything else. I'm wondering, it's all a single location in North Carolina, the tournament, right? And
Yeah.
what's the setup there? Is it a certain number of teams per hotel, and you've got to get there a certain amount of days ahead of time, or how's this working out?
Yeah, we're still sorting it out, but as true fashion. And actually, so our first game against, obviously one of those two will be, it's actually near Charlotte, which going into the day, I thought everything was in the Raleigh, Cary kind of area. So we're about 2 hours outside of the central area. So we'll actually fly into Charlotte. I don't believe it's totally set in stone yet, but we'll go out. So it doesn't start till next week. So we'll go out next Wednesday. Hopefully train there Wednesday, train Thursday, play Friday. And there's only a handful of games at that specific site. I think it's like a USL stadium that we're playing at. So we don't know. The NCAA tells you what hotel to stay in. So we'll get that tomorrow. Like I said, I think we're close to a flight, but it's actually kind of good, I think, to be out of the center of it. It can kind of keep you focused, keep you out of the hoopla, and get you good training sessions and stuff.
Well, Coach, thank you so much again. This has been a lot of fun. It's been awesome watching you guys this season. I know that you're gaining fans by the day, from at least from the message boards. People are jumping on the bandwagon every game. Peter can attest to that as well.
This team's a joy to watch, and congrats on your 100th win and everything you've achieved there so far. It's been a lot of fun to see.
No, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. The when Herman Stadium's packed, there's nothing like it, and just the fans, like it's fantastic. So I appreciate what you guys do. Appreciate you loving our program, and just thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Coach.
Awesome. See you guys.
See you. Thanks again so much to Katie Shields for coming on the podcast, taking the time we record later in the evening. So I know she's got to be exhausted from this media tour she's been on. Pete, she was a treat to talk to, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was really, really excited about this tournament, and what their program is doing and where they are. We talked so much this season about them coming into it being a young but talented team. Here they are 15-1 with one overtime loss to a top 10 team, having steamrolled the conference yet again, won the conference tournament yet again, and now gotten some serious respect from the women's NCAA tournament with the top 16 seed. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, let's go ahead and I had men's soccer up first on the docket, but I'm going to call an audible. We're going to go ahead and jump into that women's soccer team. I mean, we already talked with her a little bit about that Dayton game. So not much else we can add really, but we'll just run through it again. 3-0 win on Thursday versus Dayton here at Herman Stadium. Abby Miller gets a goal in the 25th minute, her 7th on an assist from Brianna Halverson. Hannah Friedrich gets her 3rd of the season in the 64th minute from Emily Groark. Hannah Larson adds the 3rd goal, sealing the victory for sure in the 88th minute, her 8th of the season. This game was, I mean, nothing more you can say. You beat a team four times in one season.
It was great. The whole first half, which was, it was a close half, even though SLU went in up 1 at halftime. It was just clear who the better team was. And you're never comfortable with a 1-0 lead, but the difference in skill, athleticism, and preparation was just clear. But then you come out in the second half and Dayton threw everything they had at them, and got a little nervous there for a while. But seeing Friedrich get one in the 64th was a big sigh of relief. And then that third one from Larson, honestly, the run that she and Halverson both went on to put that together, you're like, how are you doing this almost
Yeah.
in the 90th minute of this game? This just, they had another gear that Dayton didn't have. So that was a blast to watch.
This team, man, I it's gotten to a point where I love just sitting down, grabbing a beer, metaphorically or literally, I don't know. Like if I'm in the mood for a beer, I love just sitting down to watch this team. It's fun. I want to see more. I mean, like I said in the interview, they're gaining fans by the day, but Billiken fans, jump on this bandwagon if you haven't already. It is enjoyable soccer to watch. Not you get Davidson in the next game, and this game was a tension convention, as they say. Man, the nerve. I don't think I got to mention this in the interview, but the nervous tension, the nervous energy at Herman Stadium after Haley Bremer scores in the 25th minute. I was sitting next to Jack Raboyne, and we both looked at each other, and we're both wearing masks, and our eyes just tell the entire story. We're just like, this is not what we expected to happen. And then, Abby Miller gets that PK and in the 57th minute, and she buries it, cool as you like. And then, of course, Hannah Friedrich's screamer in the 89th minute to seal the win. Just an absolute pill of a goal. I got nothing left. It is just an unbelievable game.
Yeah, I mean, not only conceding that first goal that made everyone so nervous, but they had one called off after that too. So
yes, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so Coach Shields went over it about how they actually were pretty cool and collected at halftime, and still knew there was a lot of game left, and could come out and get something back. But yeah, definitely. You expressed it when they got that second one, the one with just over a minute left to play. It was joy and relief simultaneously, and the crowd just exploded.
Yeah, we always, again, we talk about this team being young and promising, but man, the poise to not allow, and this is when being at home and playing at home with fans can really maybe be a detriment. You've seen it at Chaffetz before. You see it. We saw it. Was it a Richmond game? Remember the Richmond game? You weren't there, obviously, but the weather was really bad. It was a low attended game. The nervous energy, you could feel it. And I think the team responded. With this team, they didn't let that affect them. And it was fantastic to see.
Yeah, they don't play. They play way beyond their years. They've got 4 seniors, only one of whom starts and plays major minutes. You would never know that there are so many freshmen and sophomores on this roster. It just doesn't look like that at all. They play so confident. They play so they play. They have such a good collective energy that's really palpable. And you're right. I mean, in soccer more than any sport too, the nerves. You can really feel it out there. So for them to fight through that is so impressive.
We talk often about the plateau, and we do it a lot with women's basketball. The plateau with this class that Katie Shields has brought in, she broke through that plateau very quickly. As far as like the recruiting, that ceiling, she just smashed it down with this class.
I would say this team is ahead of schedule for sure. I mean, I think everybody knew it was going to be the most talent in the A10 this season. But I don't think anyone would have predicted, another undefeated A10 season, regular season, postseason title, and then being one of the 16 seeds in the tournament. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I mean, and to think that they bring everybody back. I mean, yeah, you're right. This is by no means a plateau. No.
So they get the selection show. We talked a lot about it with with Coach Katie Shields. Not much more we could say. They will get the winner of Washington Huskies and Liberty Flames Friday night, the 30th at 6 p.m. Central Time. This is going to be fun. I'm excited. I watched a little bit of the Washington game. They're big, they're fast, but I mean, so are we. Like I've said a million times, this team has the size and skill of a sorry to say, Power 5 conference.
Well, and they went down to Arkansas and took care of a ranked team on the road. They took a very good Oklahoma State team, a top 10 team at the time, to overtime at home before losing. So there's definitely some proof that this whatever they do translates outside the A10 to a bigger stage. So yeah, we've already got that. We already know that. I did want to ask Coach Shields during the interview. I was going to ask her, so which one of you takes the Washington Scout, who takes the Liberty Scout? But she basically just said, we're going to make them play our game.
Yeah.
So I really like the confidence going into this tournament. Whoever they're facing is going to get their best game.
Yeah, men's soccer dropped their semifinal, the A10 semifinal, 2-1 to Fordham. They have missed the NCAA tournament. They actually did not score a goal on their own in that game against Fordham. An own goal in the 35th minute, a goal from Matt Sloan in the 55th minute, and I don't remember his first name. I just put Pengrazi in the 58th. I think I gave up on the notes for that one, but he got a yellow card for removing his shirt after that goal, and probably should have been sent off later in that game for a foul, for a second yellow card. The Billikens had their chances in this one.
They did, and the first half was pretty hard fought. It was actually, I got to say, that own goal was kind of a beautiful strike by their player on a Buendia cross, kind of right into the area. But coming out in the second half, I kind of figured SLU's in pretty good position here. It looked like a pretty evenly matched team. I know before the game we had no idea who Fordham was this year. They're a team that has made the NCAA tournament coming into the season, basically every other year for the last 6 years, or 3 out of 6. I don't remember the exact order. So they're a very good program. They've been ranked, a little bit, and they're undefeated this year. So we knew they were good, but they definitely they outclassed SLU for a while in the second half, and once they went up, I saw a panicked SLU team.
It was something about Schulte after that second goal that just it kind of encompassed what I felt like about the entire team. And I don't want to throw Schulte under the bus. I mean, us goalkeepers are weird. You got to let us do our thing. But yeah, it was not good.
It was all the way up and down. I mean, they were forcing things. I just saw panic. It was frustrating to see. I mean, they definitely, I don't know why they didn't get a PK there.
Yeah.
Late in the game.
Yeah, they should have had SLU should have had a PK late. The Fordham goalkeeper was, I don't know, speaking of goalkeepers being weird, I don't know what the hell this guy was doing. Took down Betcher in the very corner of the box on the touchline. I mean, it was beyond understanding. But it wasn't called. The linesman staring right at it. But again, you had your shot. You didn't do it. I mean, is what it is. SLU doesn't finish first in the regular season. They don't get to host the tournament. They don't make the NCAA tournament. Where do we stand on the season as a whole? I mean, of course, we're going to qualify it in terms of everything else going on in the world. Done it a million times. I don't need to restate anything else. What do you think?
I mean, it's a disappointment. Every sport has been shortened by COVID or affected, in some way. And really one result down the stretch changes and you might be actually hosting this thing instead of having to travel to Dayton for it. So it's frustrating because, you're right. Instead of that one seat at home, now you're playing on the road, and it's a totally different vibe. But the A10's, it's not a one bid league. Both UMass and Fordham got in.
Yeah, I gotta eat crow on that one.
Yeah. So there's definitely an opportunity. It's clear there's at least a little bit of respect for the league at the top. So yeah, it's another disappointment. It's a letdown. And I know, a lot of more casual fans might see Fordham and say, well, that's weird, but Fordham's actually one of the better programs in conference. So no disrespect to them whatsoever.
No.
They're a really good team. And I'll be
Fordham's one of
pulling them.
those. Fordham's one of those programs that like has everything very bleh, and then they have one program that's like women's basketball for Fordham has always been really, really good.
Mhm.
Soccer for Fordham has been really, really good. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, they
But
do a few things well, and
yeah,
then that's about
it's
it.
hard to
Yeah,
describe. And then
but
Dayton wasted the number 1 seed in the tournament.
completely. Yeah. So that's it's just another frustrating season, and they've got a lot of promising pieces. There's no reason for panic or anything like that. This
Right.
program's going to be back, but you just got to kind of keep the faith and give Kalish a little more time.
Yep.
But
It's only his third season, right? Second, third.
yeah, but it's still the winningest program in history. So
Yeah.
you want or at least in terms of titles. So
Mhm.
it's been a long time, but our fans definitely want to see us get back to be that at least perennial tournament team.
Yeah.
Like I think I said to you a couple weeks ago, like with our soccer programs really need to look at the A10 like we need to be the Gonzaga of this
Mhm.
conference, and just we need to be the most talented team every year. And we might not win the conference tournament every year, but we're gonna win the league. We're gonna win the regular season. It just has to be that way. So
Yeah, I think you're always going to have, and I don't want to alienate anyone, but the old fogies, right? The St.
mm,
Louis, look, we're coming from McGinty era where McGinty was recruiting heavily Texas International. Kalish is now a philosophy of we're going to try to dominate St. Louis recruiting. So we're switching over. Kalish is turning the page completely, and we're going to need to give him more than 2 years. And St. Louis is not going to win every game and not go to the final every year. It's just not going to happen. There's too many damn teams in Division One. So let's throw out this: should a powerhouse team lose to Fordham in the A-10? It's soccer. Soccer's a bitch. It is. It is. It's a cruel freaking game, and you're gonna have these things that are gonna happen. We were a good team. We weren't good enough to overcome, that loss in the A-10 tournament and make the NCAA tournament.
yeah, yeah, that's what it comes down to. So what can
Hey,
you say? They're still going to be one of the better teams in conference next year, and
as long as they
it's just
improve,
going
as
to take
long as
time.
look, with a new coach, in a program with such historical significance as St. Louis University, I think it's worth giving a local guy, a local coach, 5+ years to continuously build and build and build, because like it or not, we're starting from, 25% of 100. We're starting not from average. So give him some time, let him build this thing. And I don't want to say the right way, because that's all of a sudden become like a joke on Twitter now, as far as, so I'm told. But let him build it slowly. And I don't mean the right way by not cheating. I mean the right way is in class by class by class, getting better. And eventually, I believe that Kalish will get there. Will I have to answer to that eventually? Maybe. But that's how you build a program. So,
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, just looking through the roster too, I mean, it is worth a reminder that this is a very young team. There are only a few seniors. You've got a ton of freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores.
mhm.
That's yet another reason, give them a little time. And I know we just talked about the women's team, who is equally as young, and they're outperforming. But
But she's
there's
had
some,
8 years now.
yeah, yeah, that's
It
exactly
took
right.
her. It
She's
took
had
her
8 years.
5 years before her first NCAA tournament.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, yeah.
And
So
yes, there is a little more history on the men's side.
and pressure.
and
Yeah.
pressure, but you got to build. You can't, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right. Yeah, he's got to get through at least one cycle of, classes coming through. So we'll get there. I'm optimistic for next season.
Yeah. Well, looking at baseball and softball now. Don't look now, Pete, but we've got winning records in conference in baseball and softball. Baseball takes a 3-1 series off George Mason to send them to 3-1 in conference. They lost the first game of the series 7-3, but bounced back with 6-4, 7-0, and 4-2 wins. Good. We've said that it's more about what these guys do, these guys and ladies do in their conference, didn't we?
We did. I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen too. Not being in the strongest conference out there.
Right.
And look, baseball, they're down a little bit this year. They weren't, it's not like they were picked to win the league or anything like that, but it was a really a tough non-conference and a really rocky one as well. But yeah, I kind of had a feeling as we rolled into George Mason that things would kind of start to get on track.
Thank God I went and looked at the baseball schedule, because I almost forgot about the time is a flat circle news of the week.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a Billiken Richmond series has been postponed due to COVID protocols within the Richmond Athletic Department. Stop us if you've heard that one before.
I'm just going to assume whatever happens, we did the right thing. And I honestly, I kind of think if this one's as heated as the last one was, I mean, there's a nice little rivalry forming here based on our COVID protocols.
There's some bad blood coming. I love it. I love it. It's so no games this past weekend for the Billiken baseball team. They'll travel to Dayton, Ohio, and play a 4-game series Friday through Sunday with a doubleheader. I believe they're playing 7 innings Saturday in those doubleheaders, and those will be, I think Dayton's going to have those on ESPN Plus. So if you want to get your weekend baseball fix and the Cardinals aren't playing well, hit up that. Women's softball really took it to St. Bonaventure this weekend to improve their conference record. I'm just going to talk about conference for this, because really, why are we even talking about non-conference anymore? They're improving to 9-7 overall in conference after dropping 4 straight to GW. We talked about the Dayton, we talked about GW. They went to George Mason, took 3 of 4 off George Mason, and then swept Bonaventure 7-4, 4-3, 13-2 in 5 innings, and 7-5 in the finale. They'll take on George Washington this weekend, this coming weekend, April 24th through the 25th. 2 days of double dips. And then come back to play Southern Illinois and Kansas City. But yeah, so, I mean, both in conferences that aren't really good. It's all about it's preseason versus conference season. So.
Yeah. And once again, I kind of had a feeling we would see these results. They had a lot of hard fought losses in the non-conference.
We talked a lot about those 1-run games.
Just so many close losses. And, eventually things are going to start going their way.
Yeah. That's your Billiken, that's your Midtown Madness podcast. Again, Katie Shields, unbelievable to talk to. She's welcome. Come on after every game. We'll do a coach's show, Katie. We'll do every Monday next season. I'm down. Let's do it.
She's great.
She's awesome.
Do we know yet what the broadcast situation is for the tournament?
Volleyball's all on ESPN Plus, so I gotta think ESPN Plus is the move for them, right?
I mean that's what I would think. I just haven't seen it announced yet. So.
And I don't think let's do some bad radio.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of where it's going to be, be sure and check out our Twitter, and we'll be giving updates as soon as we find out anything, so where everybody can watch the game. And like we said, I mean, this team is absolutely infectious, and it is spreading, and they're a joy to watch. And I think you won't be disappointed on the 30th if you if you tune in and check them out.
Okay, so it looks like, oh wow, this is interesting. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna go down the logistics because we talked with Katie a little bit about that. Games will be held on the campuses of Campbell, East Carolina, UNC Wilmington, in addition to Bryan Park in Greensboro, J. Burt Gillette Athletic Complex Wilson, Sportsplex Matthews in Matthews, I'm sorry, and then Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary. So I'm not sure which of those is in Charlotte that she talked about.
Maybe that Matthews one.
Yeah, that's the only one that doesn't. I mean, yeah, I can hear you click clacking over there.
Was it that loud?
No,
Yeah, I
no,
think
not that bad.
I think that one is a suburb of Charlotte, so that's my
Okay.
guess.
But it says each of the first 4 rounds will be available on NCAA.com. Ugh. That's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah.
And then the semifinals and finals will be broadcast on ESPN2 and ESPNU, respectively. So NCAA.com is where you guys can watch the women's NCAA tournament. And we will, of course, keep you updated with a link to watch that one. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod. Follow me on Twitter, Zach Miller, MMP. That's Zach with no H or K, in case you were wondering. And Peter is a tweeter. If you want to follow Peter Hale, he's got great basketball recruiting. The source for all your men's basketball recruiting. And with the way the women's soccer is going, man, you're going to have to up your game on that, I think.
I think I am. I mean, hearing her talk about recruiting, I was kind of like, I've got to look more into this. I love their approach.
I thought I can't wait to hear when she finally does go to a high school musical.
It's going to happen sooner or later.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Again, follow us on all social media and like and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get them. Definitely go in and rate too. Give us 5 stars. Give us 5 stars. But if you got a suggestion, let us know because we'll take critiques as well. So again, thank you guys for listening. See you next time. Go Bills.
Thanks, everybody. Go Bills.